Welcome to Yarnham. I am the Reverend Toblerone, and today we are joined by Father Greer of the Haters Parish and Father Illusory Wall of the Church of Discovery. Sadly, I have a morning of tea and scones, and Marjorie, who normally plays the keyboard in the church, has got the madness and has gouged out her very eyes. So instead, I leave you with these two stinking peasants, Mr. Patrick Stardust and Mr. Coffee Jesus. Goodbye. Hello, gentlemen. Let's have a chat about Bloodborne. How are you?
Bloodborne.
Bloodborne. Boom.
Bloodborne.
DLC
Boom.
launch. Fireworks. Misery. Blood. Death. Little
Redness.
bandages round the eyes. It's all lovely. Was that your one
Blair
piece
is the
of
last
input?
boss.
Hashtag spoilers. Was that your one piece of input, Maddie? The moon.
The moon.
Yeah.
I am stood with my arms
Yeah.
in the pose as well, and every 30 seconds or so, I'll just move slightly.
So, hi, my name's Bob from Sony. We've got this hit game, Bloodborne. How do you describe it in one word? The moon. Oh, that's two.
Oh, we're
So,
really earning that review code.
You really are. So, gentlemen, what were your thoughts on the initial release of Bloodborne? Did you have any kind of tremblings before it came out? How did it hit you? How did it fare against the other Souls games? I will offer that over to Mr. Illusory Wall first.
Can we call you Wall?
Yeah, Illusory Wall, that's good.
Okay, I'm gonna call you Loot.
Mr.
Sure.
Wall, if you're
Yeah, that
feeling
sounds
nasty.
Mr. Wall. Yeah, Bloodborne, ever since Dark Souls 2 came out, I try to not get my hype up too much, which isn't a diss on Dark Souls 2. I mean, I very much enjoyed that game. But, I just sort of learned to manage expectations. So with Bloodborne, I try to not let the hype get too high. But I turned out to be, very pleased with the game. It took a few step backs in some ways. I felt like build diversity was lacking, and the way that PvP was sort of harder to get into. I felt like those were some steps back from the Souls games. But otherwise, like, the atmosphere is great in the game. The PvE is great. Is another great entry to the series.
How did it fit, sort of design wise? Would you say did they? I don't know. Did they, not just the visual, but the themes? How did they sit alongside the Dark Souls stuff? Do you prefer sort of the high fantasy?
Oh, I think Bloodborne makes
sort of
a
nice contrast, or
yeah, I think it makes a great companion piece. They've been doing this sort of like Western medieval sort of inspired fantasy setting for a while, and it's nice to have like a sort of fresh take on it, but it still feels very much like a Souls game. Like sometimes people online debate, they'll be like, Bloodborne's not a Souls game, and it's kind of like, well, I mean, it kind of is though, and so yeah, I'm saying Bloodborne is a Souls game.
So what about yourself, Jeremy?
Controversial opinion detected.
Just wanted to throw that in there so people can have something to argue about.
I don't know. There was always the thing on I'd read in various reviews saying like, oh, people that play Bloodborne won't really be able to get into Souls. They won't be able to relate to it. But I've seen so many folks that have been playing on Twitter and have have spoken to us that have really enjoyed the contrast of going back through the series. They've gone to like Scholar and then to Dark Souls, then to Demon Souls, and it's been interesting to see the people that have really not been able to get enough, but enjoyed that's something different. But they're familiar as well that was there with the Souls stuff. Right. So.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, the games really aren't all that different from each other. If you're super into a particular game in the series, you can sort of pick apart all the different mechanics and little details and say, oh, this game's very different because these, XYZ was changed for this one game. But overall, I mean, they really are part of the Souls-like genre. So
what about yourself, Jeremy?
I was incredibly hyped for Bloodborne. When the original trailer leaked back when it was called Project Beast, I just got super into it. I did something unusual, which is I kind of turned myself off of all the trailers and promotional images and anything like that. So I kind of went into it not knowing anything about it. Which a lot of times I just can't help myself. Like with this recent DLC release, I was like reading trailers and reading the wiki like yesterday, even though it came out today. So I was way into it, and the game just delivered on all fronts to me. I've been a big Souls fan since I originally played Dark Souls 1, not long after it was released, and the evolution from 1 to 2 to Bloodborne, I think, is just really, really good. And I know people have their problems with 2, and I'm not going to take that away from them, but just focusing on Bloodborne, the improvements to the combat, the speed, like the mobility, the regained health system, the world, and it being more of a horror game than a fantasy game, which I kind of would say Dark Souls is. Like, there's no dragons in Bloodborne. Like, spoiler alert, no dragons. You're not going to find any dragons.
That's what is missing. Want to land on a bridge.
Exactly. Yeah, we need the dragon. We need the bridge dragon. So that stuff all appealed to me, and then playing through the game, I loved it. My only problem with Bloodborne was that when I finished the game for the first time, I didn't really feel the need to start it back over again like I usually do with Souls games. Some of the compressed nature of the stats mean that, and the limited viability of some of the stats like Arcane and Blood Tinge kind of make it so that you don't really have to have more than one build like you would normally have in a Dark Souls 1 or a Dark Souls 2. Since then, I've come back to the game and I've made a couple more builds, and there's some differences to it, and I've been having fun with it. So I've kind of come back around, and of course with the DLC, and we haven't really talked about a spoiler policy on that stuff, but I know I finished it. I don't think any of you guys have.
No.
The weapons in the DLC actually make those builds more viable. Like there's some interesting stuff for you to do now with those stats. So I'm all in. I'm 100%. 10 out of 10. Would buy again.
It's interesting that there were so many people that just completely went dark on everything after the announcement. That were just right when the game comes out. I'm going in cold. And these days where there's a certain multi-million-dollar budget for certain games to try and convince the public that they have to play it, to then have so many people going like, nope, I'm already there, my money's already in. It's quite an interesting thing indeed. So with regards to From's games, they were always we got a niche but tight audience. Do you think there was something about launching on Sony's platform and making the splash that it did early on in the console's life cycle, and that people that maybe wouldn't have gone near the game did because it was a big release at the right time, and maybe they're changed like the rest of us when we first found like Demons or Dark? I'll go to Illusory first for that. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely think that's the case. Like I get the impression if you read discussion online, like with Dark Souls 2, a lot of the people had played Dark Souls 1 before. You get a lot of Bloodborne fans though who haven't yet, played any of the other games in the series. So I think it being exclusive to PS4 and sort of hitting that sweet spot of like there's not that many great exclusives for PS4, it sort of brought a lot of people on board.
I think that also raises a point that maybe some of the most vocal supporters of Scholar of the First Sin are probably those people that have moved straight back to it from Bloodborne and are going back through the series because they find a game that they really enjoy, that challenges them, that pushes them in different ways. then they go to Dark Souls and they see like, oh my god, I can see where everybody got addicted, and then they go to Demons and they can see sort of the touchstones. So yeah, I do find that evolution really quite interesting, I must admit.
I thought it was great to see what happens when Sony get behind we sort of say niche, don't we? It's not your Call of Duties, is it? It doesn't market itself. It was nice to see them get behind it and give it, TV trailers and E3 time to a game that wouldn't normally have got that much. I think it was a big focus for a long time in the year leading up to it, and I think that really, really helped it as well. Getting Bloodborne just out to people.
Oh, definitely.
I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with From after this, because even even with Tamur Hussain's interview with Miyazaki that happened this week, he said that Dark Souls 3 was still under the old leadership of From, and whilst he wants to close Souls off with that, it'll be interesting to see how the company sort of fares with unbridled creativity, not being slave to, oh, we're going to do Dark Souls 4 because Bandai Namco wants it. But that.
So let me ask you three, because I read that interview, and to me it was something that had already been stated, which is that Dark Souls 3 was going to be the last Dark Souls game. But in the week following that interview, when it was released, it seemed like people were taking that to mean that they were not going to make any more games in the Souls style anymore. And
no, I don't think that'll be.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's true. To me, it just seems like they just don't make Dark Souls anymore. Yeah.
I think they've got two places that they can go to after this, which would sort of fulfill the fan base in that they on the one hand they can move on to do different kinds of games, different genres, maybe a different feel entirely, or with touchstones to Souls stuff. I know a few folks have said, oh, it'd be great to have a cyberpunk game or something like that, but it'll be interesting to see. I know Miyazaki stated in that interview actually he's not really that keen on that kind of science fiction. Like the science fiction that was in Fallout 3, for example. Right. But on the other hand, if they remastered Dark Souls and Demon Souls, they've still got two games that they can kind of fill that niche with. Plus, there may be a degree of smoke and mirrors with Namco Bandai, with saying that we're not doing any more Souls games, and see where Namco sort of go from there as to how much money they're willing to put up front. And really, I guess they can play off Sony as well, if Sony have cannoned up as much money as they have and support as well for the development of Bloodborne, because I always got the impression that Dark Souls 2, the initial release, was funneled towards a certain release date, and I don't think, particularly from Tanamura's perspective, that I don't think that they were happy releasing it as it was. Whether that was hampered by sort of old technology or having to release when they released, I don't know. But
it's a good question.
And they have to be working on Bloodborne too, right? Sony would be colossally stupid not to pay them to make Bloodborne 2 at this point. Even if they called Bloodsborne or whatever, as long as it has they want a From exclusive on their platform, it'd be really dumb for them not to have that in 2017, I think.
That's the thing too. There's no chance that Sony is going to give up some sort of exclusive, deal with From Software, which leads me to sort of speculate that I would guess that From is probably going to sort of split the franchise, so to speak. We don't know where the franchise is going, because they said Dark Souls 3 is kind of the last of at least Dark Souls specifically. But I would expect that they're probably going to split the series to make exclusive games for Sony and multi-platform games on the side, I guess. Because it seems like they have a very strong fan base spread across PC and Xbox, and it would seem kind of surprising if they would just turn away from that. Yeah. So I feel like they're gonna split up. There's gonna be stuff that's just for Sony and stuff that's multi-platform.
They're in the interesting position now where they don't have to rely on somebody else, because Kadokawa was an incredibly cash-rich company. Yep. So if they wanted to go it alone and just get people to put certain games out in certain territories across the world. They could effectively do that. And Miyazaki in particular's got such kudos and mystique around him that they can play hardball in a way that From were never able to before. So that'll be interesting. Plus, you know, with regards to the science fiction aspect, they do still have Armored Core that has always needed a little bit of a tinkering about. I know Miyazaki's worked on a couple of those games before, and it'd be interesting to see what they could do with Armored Core, as to whether they, you know, even if they kept the mech combat and they made more of a story of it, and they had perhaps, you know, stuff on the ground in a more Souls style, but with you know, different weapons, and I don't know. I'd be curious to see that.
You're investigating the mystery of why none of the mechs can fly anymore. So everybody has to stay on the ground.
No, I just think that'd be really cool if they had on foot sections, or you know, if the mechs got shot down or damaged and stuff, if you could get out and fix them, or take over other mechs, or if there was, you know, a real contrast between the ground stuff and then fighting in the machine, it would be kind of neat. Plus,
man,
you know,
how cool
I
would
don't think. Go on.
I was gonna say, how cool would a virtual reality Kingsfield game be?
God, you see,
Do
this is where we're now going back into From stuff that they could potentially pick up on. Fucking hell!
Right.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna shoot the shit with you on this. That, like, if they did, if they came back to Kingsfield and they applied, you know, if they went more of a, I mean, it's the instant touchstone, but if they did like a Skyrim thing to it and basically had, you know, your full 3D engine and stuff, but they applied the same sort of Souls mechanic that made the combat so instinctive. And, you know, you could do third person or third person within that, whichever you'd like, but there was more of an emphasis on that level of challenge that's there in Souls stuff. They could essentially go back to Kingsfield. That way they could dig up a Togi or, you know, whichever. I mean, I know Dave Klein's going through a lot of sort of back catalogue From stuff and finding a few gems in there as well. So they have a lot of franchises that they could dig up, polish up, and they do have the potential to be something else entirely, I think.
My only concern about a virtual reality From game is what was the Kinect game that they did? Steel Commander on Xbox 360?
Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion.
Steel
like,
Battalion
I remember
too, didn't they?
seeing the preview for that and going, oh my god, From's making this game and you can, like, give someone a fist pound and it's going to be amazing. And then the game itself was just absolute garbage. Like, I don't know what happened there, but it was just terrible.
I think they were limited quite a lot by that piece of shit technology, weren't they?
Well, yeah, that is true.
Just a shame they're not using the new one, because the new one's kind of cool.
So we're all skirting around what From should really do. As we said last episode, they should get Soul Reaver. Give them Soul Reaver. Please give him Soul Reaver.
Yeah. Well, that was in the interview with Tamora.
God-awful
right?
thing. Yeah, like, and we've said that on our show months ago that he should have Soul Reaver, and I agree. It's very close to my heart.
Or they could shatter the internet.
There's a lot of things.
Take over Metal Gear Solid.
Oh wow!
No, there's so many things I want From to take over. I want them to take over Castlevania so badly. That would be like a dream come true for me.
I always had that feel when with the threaded cane in Bloodborne, where it's very much like a Castlevania. Castlevania. Hello.
Castlevania.
Castlevania.
I know.
I'm a vampire.
One sheep jumping over the sty. Two sheep. Sorry, I'm going into Sesame Street territory. But
okay,
yeah, I
you're
agree.
my friends.
It would be a good fit for that. So, what were your favourite aspects of Bloodborne then? I will open that up to Jeremy first this time.
My favorite aspects, I touched on this briefly, just the speed of the combat and the mobility you have. For whatever reason in Dark Souls 2, I kind of did away with using a shield. And so when I started up Bloodborne, I kind of felt right at home, and it was just even going back to Dark Souls 2 now, like the games feel so slow in comparison. So that being able to kind of zip around and take a hit and then quickly get your health back from the regain, like all this stuff, just like it kind of clicked with me right away. Not saying like I like waltzed through the game without dying once ever, because I died a lot. I died a whole lot. But it just felt natural, like it felt really good, like being that kind of dash that you do and the backwards jump. I loved all that stuff. And then second to that was just the world, right? Like, I mean, it was just this huge next gen world that we had never seen from Duke. For all of its faults, my big complaint with Dark Souls 2 is that the terrain and the landscape felt kind of flat and just kind of boring to a certain extent outside of some of the DLC areas. And this was just, I don't know, like the world was just amazing. And then all of the crazy plot stuff that, I don't know, man, like I still don't really understand what's going on in this game, but I love it. That's just, the moon's coming down, it's giving birth to crazy weird human monster thing. I don't know what's happening, but I love it. It's all great.
I think visually I've not really seen horror done in this kind of way, especially in games, but even in movies and stuff, where the creature isn't overly designed and sort of perfect. In many ways they're kind of flappy bits of meat and disgusted, twisted, skull-based disease things that aren't aesthetically pleasing, but in the same regard they are, because that they're so off kilter and so disturbing. And I know some of the footage I was watching on stream tonight, I was like, ugh, how do you even begin to draw that never less animated?
It's almost like seeing some horrifying kind of picture kind of come to life. It's awful, isn't it?
That's my review. So, Illusory, your favourite stuff in Bloodborne?
I'm gonna agree with Jeremy about like the world design. Coming from Dark Souls 2, which had this sort of disjointed level design, it was very satisfying to come back, especially the way Central Yharnam connects to Old Yharnam and all the the way those areas connect to themselves. It's just very satisfying. It reminds me a little bit of like, I think something I really liked in Demon Souls was the Boletaria level, just 1-1 through 1-4. You have this sort of cohesive level design, and it's just sort of a complaint that some people had about Bloodborne is that it might not be as varied as some of the other Souls games. Which, sure, it doesn't hurt adding more different areas, but like, if it were up to me, like, hey, would you want to cut Central Yharnam in half to give it like a completely different aesthetic, the place with a different look? My answer would be no. I love having these big areas with a sort of singular theme, so it feels more like a labyrinth that you're exploring, a bigger city. So I really like the aspect of having the biggest city setting that they've done yet. Like that to me is fantastic.
Feels like a place that people would, in the daytime when the hunt's on. It feels like somewhere people would walk around in, and
exactly.
It's real. Yeah, it's not just like, here are the 5 houses to show that this is a town.
Right.
I do wish they kept the connection to Demon Souls, because when the beta test was on and there was that announcement that was it Father Gascoigne said Umbasa, I absolutely lost my shit. I was like, fuck. and I love demons to pieces, and then I was wondering if after the death of the old one, as to whether there was a rise of a different disease, if this was a further across the sea, or
I sort of think
really
that from intentionally left
removal
things
of it kind of bothered me.
I feel like they left it open enough though that fans that want to believe that kind of still can, because I don't feel like there's anything that directly contradicts that possibility. It's sort of like in your head, because I have my own sort of, I don't know how much I actually believe it, but I was playing around with the idea that Bloodborne could take place after the good ending of Demon Souls, and Dark Souls could take place after the bad ending of Demon Souls. So that would mean sort of Bloodborne and Dark Souls are not in the same universe, but they're both in the same universe as Demon Souls, if that makes any sense. Because I like that Demon Souls, the bad ending ends with the world getting covered in fog and everything being completely destroyed by the demons, and Dark Souls opens up with this cutscene saying everything's covered in fog. and it's like this sort of primordial state. So it's like, maybe Dark Souls is like a blank slate, sort of like the Big Bang happening again, just because everything was destroyed. But Bloodborne could be more like the world didn't completely go away, and but the soul arts were lost, which is why everything became more technological.
Thing is, you say bad ending, like Demon's Souls. The world's horrible. It's full of horrible stuff. Burn it all. That's the good option. Burn it from orbit is the only way to be sure.
Everything is always horrible in the Souls games.
Yeah, there is no right answer to anything. Everything
I grew up
is
in
bad.
Boletaria, fuck you.
Different degrees of bad.
So if you did do a sequel to Bloodborne, what would you change or adapt?
Hey! Why haven't you asked me what I like about Bloodborne? Go on,
All right
me.
then. You can have your turn after this. I've offered a question.
No, ask me now.
Like a succulent biscuit with a jam centre. And no, you wait your turn, sir. Like a beautiful puppy or a precious slipper. So,
Look, I'm not even here.
So, gentlemen guests, if you did do a sequel to Bloodborne, what would you change? What would you adapt? And where would you go with it?
For me, and I've spoken a lot about this lately, Chalice Dungeons. I really like the core idea of Chalice Dungeons. They just need to be expanded and kind of tweaked a bit to be a lot more fun. Because they have the very beginnings of basically infinite Souls gameplay. And right now it's very, very limited by you having to farm materials. It doesn't really feel satisfying finishing them because the loot that you get in Bloodborne is not very great. You pretty much just get more material from chalices. More materials for chalices. And just with a few small tweaks, like, make the loot more interesting, let you, party up with some friends and do them together where you can all share the stuff. Like, me and Illusory were doing one today, and it's the way we were going about it is I would get summoned into his game, we would complete the first layer, then we'd go back to the start of the first layer, and he would get summoned into my game, and then we would move on to layer 2 and repeat. So we're basically playing the same thing twice, which is, it's not bad, and it doesn't take long when you have 2 people, but it's not great. So I think with that change, that would be like enough for me. And I'm really worried, and Illusory was telling me this today too, that with the backlash against chalices, that they're just going to be like, well, that was a failed idea, we're never going to touch it again. And I would really like to see him return to it. Exactly. Yeah.
I think Miyazaki's headstrong enough to know where he can improve things, and I don't think he'd be told by a fan base the things that he could throw away, I guess. I think he's I suppose you try things and some come off and some don't, but I'll be interested to see how he comes back to this world, if he does, after then being refreshed with Dark Souls 3 and returning to fantasy, because I know he said that he quite enjoyed getting back to that after taking a break with Bloodborne.
So maybe even with the, like you were saying about the the rewards you get, maybe sort of stick in some sort of reward mechanic like your Destiny or your Borderlands has got, where you'll find a slightly more different version of your weapons. I know they kind of did that already, but sort of the chance of finding, oh look, I found a lightning saw cleaver, brilliant. Like some sort of randomised loot that gets better and better the deeper and deeper you go, maybe, rather than just, hey, here's some jellies, you can make another one.
So Pat,
or even like the ability to, like, you find a different weapon, but maybe find an already upgraded weapon, because the upgrade materials are so scarce that if you found a +9 saw cleaver, like, all of a sudden that's way more valuable. Like, that could be something I use immediately. Like, I don't have to go and spend a bunch of money and materials upgrading it. Just anything to make the loot more interesting.
So yeah. I did find that pretty cool in the DLC in Dark Souls 2, that you're wandering along, you might find like a +7 winged spear or a +8 such and such. That was one of those things that I've not really seen before, and I kind of dug it. They weren't just dropping something for you to then level up. It was like, look, this is nearly all the way there.
Or dropping something for you to immediately put in the box and never touch, because who has the time?
So Pat, what were your thoughts on Bloodborne?
What was my favourite part of Bloodborne?
No, give me your thoughts in general on Bloodborne. Your favourite part. Come join us.
Come join us.
Push
Okay.
your anorak up to ours.
Right, Bloodborne for me, and I've said this about Dark Souls 2, but I'm going to say it more about Bloodborne. Bloodborne kind of felt more like mine than a lot of the other games in the Soul series. It feels like it belongs to me. Where we were quite lucky to get it early. We had it a week before release when there was nothing, literally nothing, on the internet. So if you got stuck, you had to do it yourself. I believe I got at least halfway through it by myself. I got at least up to sort of Romish sort of area. The one Reborn as well, I think I managed before like the general public got it, and the information suddenly started to sort of puke all over the internet. But Bloodborne always felt more like it was my game. Like I discovered all the things myself, and I made a few stuff up. It's cool, we all do. But it kind of felt more like a discovery than it was with the first Dark Souls, because a lot of it was out there, and Ornstein and Smo, apparently they're quite tough. I know about that. Well, you don't, but
you had review code for Dark Souls too, so
I know, and it's the same sort of thing, but more.
It felt more yours than Dark Souls 2 at that point. Because I remember you saying
because it's
you had that kind of connection.
A PlayStation, because it's a PlayStation exclusive, in it, and I'm a massive fanboy, so. But it kind of more than it was for Dark Souls 2. It felt more like this game's for me. This is my game, and that's what's kept me with it. It's like it's mine, and plus it's fucking brilliant, which is also a help. But yeah, it kind of felt, compared to the other Souls games, maybe with the exception of the first half of Dark Souls 2, but Bloodborne always felt like it was mine. Like, it was my game, I could play this, it wasn't anyone else's, it belonged to me. I found all the things out before everyone else did, and I felt smart about it. That's what I like about Bloodborne, it's mine.
And I exist purely as the anomaly, because I did get very, very excited for the first sneak peek of Project Beast, and was it on Gaff or Reddit, where they got a hype train and everybody was adding their own faces to the hype train and all this sort of stuff. I'm just getting really, really excited, and got the game, and it just didn't click for me, and it's a real source of frustration for me. And I know part of it is that I'm not particularly good at it, and maybe I was, especially near to launch, I ended up getting really into Scholar of the First Sin, and that stole me away. And from a show perspective, it was quite nice, because Paddy was really into Bloodborne. I was really sort of getting into Scholar of the First Sin, and we had a nice little contrast between us. But I don't know, even the points where I've gone back to it, there's something that's just not compelling me in the same way. And but I genuinely think part of that's me, that there's something steady and considered that I find in Souls that's much faster and more unreasonable in Bloodborne. I find even a lot of the normal enemies, like those big stilt guys in the jail, very hard to read, very hard to beat. And
to be fair, they are always tough, regardless where you are. Like they're tough for everyone.
And I've come back to it again, sort of in the last few days, and it feels very much like a winter game for me. This is a sort of game where it'll be quite cold. I'll hunker under a duvet on the couch, and within the darkness lose myself, in the same way as when Dark Souls first launched. I think that was in October time, and there was something about running around in the undead parish, on the big sort of bridge bits before you curved back around again and went just inside the back entrance to the church. That always felt like I was outside, because the flat was so cold. Sort of running along, just sort of shivering, and it felt I could almost feel sort of that sort of atmosphere. So to be running amongst the towns rather than it being early spring, for it to starting to get really cold and really quite dark, and I do find this type of year sort of quite oppressive anyway. I don't know, there's been a lot more of a click than I felt previously, but it's a real source of frustration that I'm sort of butting my head against it, and I'm wanting to like it more than I'm meshing with it, I guess.
Well, you know what you need to do? You need to link in with the best thing about Bloodborne, which will, which is clearly the clothes, right?
I disagree. I don't like
what?
The clothes.
No, you're
yes.
wrong.
You were wrong.
Dude, if I have a choice in a game, I will put on there's a big long coat, I will put that on. In Red Dead Redemption, as soon as I unlocked that big long coat, I was wearing that big long coat for the rest of the game. In Bloodborne, it's literally just big long coats, and it's like Christmas. I can't hold all of these big long coats. I don't know which one I like more.
It's like should I wear that collection of sacks that are sewn together, or shall I wear that collection of sacks that are thrown together? That's how
you just haven't found the fancy stuff yet. The fancy stuff, like the cool top hats and interesting capes.
I've got a top hat. I've got a beak mask.
Well, I'm dressed like an English constable now, so
yeah, I do think as well with Dark Souls, I always had this aspect that if something was tough for me, I could respond to it with armor potentially, and I've not got that feel from Bloodborne with Miyazaki sort of wanting to make things look pretty rather than them being super tough.
No, it's to make them all viable. Any piece of armor can be worn any time without any sort of penalty to your movement and your ability. He wants you to move fast, and that's why the armor does I think it's percentage increase on your stats rather than just a set number to keep it viable at high levels.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have to bother with upgrading all of your gear and being trapped into gear that's only viable because you've spent the upgrade materials upgrading it.
Yeah.
So.
How many times have we had a bit of gear drop? Like exactly like the weapons. You get, oh cool, a new set of armour that's going to cost, hang on, let's see, like sort of 50 more Titanite shards and another 50 large ones. And who has time?
That's my life! Mind you say who has time? Everybody I know has absolutely cannoned into Bloodborne, like properly cannoned into it, like way in the distance, and my own haggard aging abilities just leave me staring at the abyss and going like, did I ever used to be good at video games?
Well, CJ, you've recently, like, I've noticed you playing Bloodborne a lot recently, talking about it a little bit more on Twitter. Like, what is it that changed? Because I know you kind of weren't into it. You were kind of more into the Scholar of the First Sin when that came out. Like, what changed? Did you just decide to do it for the show and then it clicked with you finally, or what happened?
Well, we were going into it co-op wise at a certain point, and I think that Pat was a little bit bothered because some of the bosses were maybe a little easy with us both sort of thrashing at them, and to be fair, probably him thrashing at them more than me.
We were trivialising them a little bit. It felt wrong.
I don't know. There's a degree of wanting to love it and feeling that there's a point that perhaps I'll click with it, and that certainly when Demon's Souls came out, that just hooked me completely, and it was all I was playing. Likewise with Dark Souls, it just, I suffocated my life, I guess. And with Bloodborne, I didn't have that level of constant immersion and, the kind of tankety tank, just keep going. Because, partially because of Scholar and partially because, I don't know, there was a level of heart and connection that just wasn't there. So coming back to it again recently, just trying to feel my way around afresh, knowing that the Old Hunters was coming out as well, and I have kind of enjoyed my time and have started to form little plans in my head as to how I'm gonna tackle stuff and do things. I'm still coming up against brick walls. There'll be times when I'll run around the jail and die to a pig or a fucking dog. Although there was a bit the other night where the music that plays in the Hyperion jail, there's a bit where there was one of those big stilt lads coming from in the distance, and he got these two dogs that sort of ran through this archway down at me, and I took them out, and the bit where it went, I went, I killed your dogs, which made me giggle tremendously, that kind of broke the immersion of and the illusion of atmosphere a little bit. But I've decided that I'm going to sort of try and farm the jail a little bit, because I get so so many blood echoes from it. But then I can't read those stilt lads. I can't read them. There'll be kind of like the hit, and then the hit, and that kind of leg that doesn't go forward, just kind of goes out to the side a little bit. Then there'll be a swipe. Then there'll be that big sort of Pink Floyd keyboard solo that comes in, like, and they sort of crackle red, and then they rush at me, and then there'll be the bag thing, and I don't know. That's one of my frustrations with Bloodborne is I can't read stuff particularly well, and it seems to be a lot of just get in the thick of it and fucking smash the shit out of that and get your health back. And there's a part of me that just goes, no. And even with the bosses, they seem to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel the same way about some of the bosses. That I can definitely feel you about having a hard time reading the enemies in the game. There's so many bosses with just like this sort of like messy fur look to them that it's like it makes it harder to read.
I think there's something within. I mean, we're blessed with incredible animation and wonderful sort of flowing sort of hairs and capes and all this
skin.
kind of stuff. Yeah, but I feel that there was something in the Souls games that was very almost like Ray Harryhausen. That was very stop motion. That was it's coming at me and I can read its animations, and there's a kind of a lumbering aspect to it, or it seemed slow but dangerous, even the quicker stuff, and it just feels like with the bosses for me, and this is my own lack of talent with this stuff, but it just feels like there's a tornado coming at me, and I genuinely struggle to react to it and to kind of to feel like I'm in the game, I guess. I just feel like I'm gonna. I don't know. It is me. I watched True Talent on stream tonight doing some of the bosses in the Old Hunters, and this. I mean, he's a brilliant player anyway. A Street Fighter player by trade who knows how to read people and taught me a lot about Dark Souls 2 PvP. But there were things coming at him that I genuinely wouldn't have lasted a minute with, and there were things he was doing where I was in such admiration of what he was doing, especially because I think he took down the final bosses of the Old Hunters at level 70, which, as I understand it, was quite low. And there was somebody.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a challenge.
There was somebody in stream that was advising him who was something that was over double what he was, and he was like, "Well, to be fair, you will have more health, you'll have more stamina and stuff." But yeah, he was doing it at level 70, which I got the impression was
not lots.
yeah. What levels are you sort of tinkering into the Old Hunters at?
Okay, so I started at level 60, and the recommended level is 65-ish, is what they say. What we were told, because me and CJ were quite lucky to get a code for it a little bit early, which was nice. Thanks to the lovely people at Sony. Have that up your ethics pipe. And
it's that damn Upper Souls community, man. I'm telling you, it's
all
all rigged.
Upper British Souls community. Oh.
Well, if there is Illuminati high in the sky on their space shuttles and their moon rockets, we are hiding in trees as trembling squirrels, just whispering about souls, dreaming of the future.
We know about the sun, but we're not sure what we should do to it.
Yeah.
I went in at about level 60 to 65. No. It recommends, the DLC will actually open up very shortly after you've beaten Amelia, which is not a mean feat in its own, for a fairly new player. It's not a mean feat at all. But you really probably shouldn't go in then. Like, it's open, yeah, but don't do it. Don't do it. I think they've just made it so early so more people could jump straight into it, I think. Oh, it's my read of it anyway. They made it open up a lot earlier to save people having to literally start the whole game again and be like, 20, 30 hours before they can get to the new content. They want people to be able to, get to it pretty quick.
Can you not do sort of like a 4-1 in Demon Souls where after 1-1 it's difficult, but you end up getting shed loads of souls for it, so it's worth kind of tickling into to push yourself.
Well, to be honest, the place you got lost, the Hypogean jail is the best place for that, really. I mean, the once you get taken away there, and let's be fair, that is my favourite thing that's ever happened. I think when we were both on chat, we all set ourselves up for a game of Bloodborne together, and we're running around, and we run into our first bad guy. CJ gets knocked out, and it's, oh, I'm waking up somewhere. I'm like, right, well, this session's over. I'll see you in a couple of days. Phone down. It was amazing. But yeah, I think you can go in there, but unless you're a skilled player, and I think unless you're ready, like it's gonna rip you a new ass. It will rip you a fucking new ass unless you're ready for it. Like, don't go in fresh. Have some upgraded gear. Level yourself up a bit. I'm in there around level 70, 75ish now, and it's going a bit smoother than it was when I first jumped in. And a little bit of that is from getting to learn it a bit. But I think my gear and that and my body is better. Why are you guys? When did you jump in? Illusory Wall.
Yeah, I'm totally over leveled. I'm a level 141 right now.
Holy moly.
So I'm totally breezing through the DLC, which I don't mind though, because at first I had reservations like, oh, I'm just gonna steamroll all the content. The challenge isn't gonna be there, so it's not gonna be fun. But that hasn't been the case at all. It's been a lot of fun just seeing the content, and I feel like if I want more of the challenge, that's what New Game Plus will be for. So. Like most of the bosses, I'm like 3 bosses in. I've only died, like on each boss maybe once or not at all in some cases. But the content is just so good. Like I can tell, like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to like do this again, sort of situation. So yeah, it's like I've made it kind of easier than I should have, but I don't feel like I'm missing out at all because of it.
So did you?
Well, let me tell you avoided a few mid-level deaths then, because. There are a couple of points where if you're at a lowly level like I was, standard enemies were giving me jip at one point. I just couldn't. I actually physically couldn't.
So at that level, you managed to not go into New Game Plus. You managed to resist that. How?
An Illusory Wall has fallen off the call. Fantastic. Live television, everybody.
Let's open that up to Mr. Jeremy Greer then. Jeremy.
Yes, he'll.
Similar to Illusory, I went in at a pretty overpowered level. Like I started at level 123. This is a character that I've been doing a lot of chalice diving with, so I had like super crazy high-end gems. And so the DLC to me didn't give me many problems at all. Some of the bosses are very aggressive and they have a lot of HP, so I can definitely see going in at a lower level, like a 60, 70, is going to be very, very difficult. I do think if you can manage to kill the bosses at a low level, there's a lot of really good loot in there. Like, there's a bunch of good gems, there's a bunch of good upgrade materials, so like it's probably worth going and try to do as much as you can. But I had like really no problem at all. And the one problem I did have, I had someone to come in, Allison from Lego Dark Souls, came in and helped me, and I helped her with the same boss, so that was a lot of fun. Cool. But I just kind of breezed through it. I'm looking forward to going back through with my Blood Tinge build to see, because I think that's going to be like the real Dark Souls starts here kind of challenge.
How so?
But as a way to experience the story and to kind of experience the content, I had a blast today. Like, I started it up at like 4 a.m, played all morning, and it was literally still playing when you guys called me today and were like, hey, you want to do a thing? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do a thing. So like, I've been literally playing all day.
You've already platinumed the DLC content, right?
Yeah, I got all. There's only 5 or 6 trophies in there, and I got all of those. So.
Oh, crazy.
I am in awe. Well played.
So
Illusory.
Okay.
We're sort of throwing things out there that before you disappeared. How did you manage to resist going into New Game Plus when you got that higher level of a character? I guess was it like Jeremy says to do sort of chalice diving, or just knowing that you wanted to kind of test and I don't know, appreciate the world as much as possible without going back through it on a harder level?
Right, yeah, I sort of started off with the intention of, like, I made a new character to get ready for the DLC, and I was like, alright, I'm going to do maybe an arcane strength build or something, and, stop at a reasonable level. And then it just sort of dawned on me. I was like, wait, but there's going to be all this new stuff that I'm going to want to use. So it wound up being the situation where I made like a jack of all trades. This character has everything aside from Blood Tinge, basically. So, as a result, that put my level up real high, and I was just sort of like, this isn't what I originally planned, but now I'm going to get to try out a bunch of stuff. So, that's sort of how I wound up where I am.
That's actually pretty smart, because my arcane guy I've been taking through literally has... I've only been leveling up health, endurance, and arcane. Like, everything else I've been ignoring, so I can't use a lot of the stuff that I've found so far.
Yeah, because I have a lot of people that have gone straight into with their NG plus characters and are just getting battered by certain bosses, absolutely battered. But most of them are
like
quite
that dude
happy
from Kotaku
to start a new character. Go on.
Like that dude from Kotaku who wrote a whole article about, how the Bloodborne DLC is too hard for him. He couldn't finish it. And I'm like, dude, like your whole job is to do the thing, and then write the article.
Right.
Don't write the article and then do the thing.
Right.
But I mean, I understand. Like, not everybody is like super awesome at video games. I don't think you have to be super awesome at video games to do that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I can definitely see. Bloodborne gives you so many echoes. You can level yourself up pretty easily in the game, especially once you get into kind of the later game content. Like, just level up. Like, there is no reason not to. If you want to play with your buds, as soon as you put in a password into co-op, it ignores, from what I understand, and Illusory will correct me on this, it ignores all the level restrictions. So
That's absolutely right.
I got summoned by a level 4 dude, and I was level 120 something. I think so. Like, you can just keep leveling up. I mean, it doesn't really matter. And the game is smart enough to take the higher leveled guy and to bring him down to the lower level guy's level. So you can, it won't be totally unfair for, kind of a boss killing machine. So yeah, just level up.
So when the Dark Souls,
the only
go on.
I was going to say, the only sort of penalty for if you keep leveling up is if you trying to look for random co-op. That's where you might sort of push yourself out of like the hot spot of activity. But if you're going to pair with a friend though, then there's no reason to stop leveling. If you because you can always pair.
Yeah, although saying that, when while I was in sort of leveling myself up to get to the DLC, because when I sort of first got back into it, I was only around level 40 or so, and I thought, well, I need to strengthen up a bit. So I sort of toddled off to Hemic around sort of level 40, 45-ish. Was getting summoned into people's New Game Plus games.
Yeah,
really?
And
that's
how? How?
Well,
I wasn't good enough.
The reason for that is they made the co-op range a lot wider than it's ever been in the Souls games, and I mean this is including the even without the password. It's like uses like a plus or minus 20 plus 20% range. Dark Souls 1 for co-op use like 10 plus 10%. So it's basically like if you're level 100, that makes your co-op range like plus or minus 40 levels above and below you. So you can start pairing with people who are actually like really far away from you. So yeah, like actually, I'm curious to look it up. What level were you in Hemic? You were like 40 something.
I would say 45, probably 50 by the time I sort of gave up there.
Yeah, like if I look that up, that's like calculations here.
Boop, boop, beep, boop.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're level
Good Foley,
50,
guys. Good Foley.
Thanks.
If you're level 50, a level 88 guy can summon you. So
really, jeez.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Even then, like New Game Plus was kicking my butt like proper hard. I actually managed to beat the Witch of Hemic with a co-op buddy once. I don't know how I did it. Like, weapon was nearly broken, and I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm too small. But we did it, and yeah.
Didn't they make New Game Plus a little bit easier in one of the patches as well, though?
I have no idea.
I think they might have, but I hadn't actually played any New Game Plus by the time that happened, so I didn't really have like a reference point. But I'm pretty sure in the patch notes somewhere they said something about like readjusting New Game Plus values, specifically because like it had a lot of like fame for being like just a really, really difficult New Game Plus adventure.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's good, because like I've not really tickled into it either. So
Isn't this your second Bloodborne character pad? Because the first one, if I remember, like you played it on instinct at first, and then you were going through with the guide to make sure you hadn't missed anything out, or if there were certain things that you hadn't seen.
Yeah, exactly. My first guy was a skill build, because when we were at the preview event for Bloodborne before it came out, I was like, well, of course I'm going to use the threaded cane because it's the classiest of all weapons. And I thought, well, I'm going to use that. That's going to be my main sort of idea. And it's like, oh, okay, skill then, right, fine. So I just kept focusing on skill and stayed with that and kind of just felt it out as normal. But I did find that I did miss a few things, again, because you don't know the order you're supposed to do quests, you don't know the guys you're supposed to kill, the guys you're supposed to leave. But this character I'm going through at the moment was the one that I used for the co-op with you, is an arcane build, and it's like, magic isn't something I ever really try in Souls games anyway. But as Bloodborne, arcane's a bit different. It's more about elemental damage, and you've got a few spells, but you don't get an awful lot of use out of them. Or I've found anyway. So I thought I'd give it a go, and for the most part, I'm quite enjoying it. I'm refusing to use the Ludwig's Holy Sword thing because it's the popular one, and I'm too cool for that. So I've been using a sword cleaver. Thanks. A sword cleaver with a fire gem shoved in it, and that seems to be doing all right. I'm doing quite well with it, but I'd like to unlock some more gems now, please, because it's been a very long time since I've upgraded my weapon. Did you say
if you want gems, you're going to have to go into the Chalice dungeons.
God damn it!
I'm going to try to pull the link.
At them. Yeah, I was doing okay at them before. A few of the bosses were giving me jip, but I was doing okay at the Chalice dungeons. It's just the time it takes.
We haven't co-oped those, have we?
No, not at all.
We'll have to do a Jeremy Illusory.
Did you?
Yeah. As it will be known. Hello, sir. Do you fancy a little bit of Jeremy and Illusory? I do. I'll see you in the special place. Bring all the things. So when Dark Souls got its DLC, there was a really big sort of push because we found ourselves somewhere which tied up a lot of lore. We met Artorias. We saw Goth. We saw something that was very important to the game that tied it up in a sort of a pretty pink bow. Are you finding a similar sort of push or wrap up in the Old Hunters, or is it more kind of just frisking you a little?
It seems more like a short story, like the kind of how the DLC for Dark Souls 2 were kind of independent stories that fed into the main game. It feels like that to me, and I'm not the best lore guy in the world by any means. I have a hard time putting some of the bigger stories together in my head and creating a narrative out of everything that happens. But it feels like it's separated from the main game, but in a way that like sheds light on the main game. Does that make sense? And Illusory, you might have better insight to this than I do.
I definitely do not. No, I feel very much the same way as you. I'm not a lore buff with these games, and so it's sort of like the way you worded it is perfect. Like sometimes I have a hard time piecing together all the bigger bits of the story. For me, it definitely feels like a short story. It does add complete run. Damn it, I'm trying to not pun like you just did. I was going to say, it does add insight to certain things in the main game.
Just kind of, create it as one big tangerine squashed between your fist.
For Jeremy. Yeah. For me...
Sorry, you all disappeared from
yes and no.
For a moment.
Yeah, we're having fun. We'll bring Illusory back in a second. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see how it plays out in the main game and not quite, just kind of be something at the end of a run that you add in. I'd like to play it alongside. I kind of know where it would fit in, like as we were talking, like level 70 or level 80. I don't know the best narrative spot that you would want to jump in. I mean, I'd almost say you'd want to wait till the end of the game because you kind of explored everything. You kind of have an idea of what's happening. You're familiar with the terms of Great Ones and what the Great Ones are trying to do, and then going into this will be like eye-opening. Like you'll be like, holy shit, this is what they were doing, like that. So I think you would kind of need this story background for that to be able to go through it. But I don't know, like it'd be really interesting if someone did this super early and then went through the rest of the game with that stuff in mind. But it'd be hard for me to say what that is because you can't erase it from your mind. Like I would pay $10 for that pill if I could just play it all fresh again, but can't. So
Thing is, like you say about the correct place to start it. I mean, I've been going through Bloodborne with the guide, and in the back there's like a little checklist of how to get everything. Get all the quest rewards, get all the emotes. From the story, don't miss anything line. It suggests going to Canehurst before doing Bergenworth, and that is frankly fucking crazy pants.
Yeah, that is. I don't agree with that at all.
No, it's ridiculous. Like, in kind of a sense of it wants you to kind of do all the bits at this phase, then all the bits at that phase. But that's like I read it and I thought surely not. So I went there and I found out, and no, you really shouldn't.
So we had an update on the game sort of recently. What are your thoughts on the changes that it's made to the game from the what we had initially?
Well, they have some good improvements. One problem I had with the matchmaking was that you don't really have a good indication of when other people are looking for online activity. Like in the Souls games, you're human. Maybe you're not planning on summoning anyone, but you at least see a bunch of summon signs on the ground. In Bloodborne, you don't have any visual indication that other people are ringing their bells. So something that they added in this patch is that if you see a ghost of another player who's searching for activity, you'll actually see those little rings on the ground that radiate out from their feet.
Is that what that means?
Right, yes, okay. Yes. So.
Oh my god.
So it's this very nice, subtle touch that just helps inform you, hey, other people are looking for activity. So, that right there alone is something that felt that probably should have been there from the start, and I'm very happy that it was included in the patch.
God, that's subtle and brilliant. I love it.
I shall keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and there's other good stuff too. I mean, adding the NPC summons, I thought was a very good idea.
What do you
guys
more
stuff to see and do in the games. You can find them in the chalice dungeons as well, so it makes them feel a little bit less lonely.
I have already squished so many vermin that he apparently killed himself, because that's a thing that happens. Did y'all know this? Because I did not know this. So, for those that haven't joined the Covenant, when you join the Covenant and you're wearing the rune, you help somebody with the boss, you get a thing called a vermin that has a pretty interesting item description to it. And then to level up in the Covenant, you use the vermin, which is an animation of your character pulling it out, throwing it on the ground, and squishing it with his foot.
Pulling out the vermin, right?
Yeah. Yes, the vermin.
Just whipping it out.
He's just whipping it out, throwing it down, and squishing it with his foot. That's how we do it here in the South of the U.S. I don't know how you guys across the pond do it. For every vermin you kill, you get one more point, and if there's a leaderboard and all that stuff. And at some point, I had 30 or 40 of them built up, so I just used them all at once. I squished them all at once, and I went back to talk to him to see if his dialogue changed, and he was just dead, gone. Luckily, his hat was sitting there, so I got his hat, which was really cool. But yeah, he was just dead. So that was cool, I guess.
Well, saying
and that is because he's a summon in the DLC, and he was not there for me when I went to do that fight.
Oh, you got him. See, I had a thing where I went there a bit early. I got one of the bits of his outfit from the DLC, the constable's kind of jacket, and then went back. I just sort of went back into the main game around Hemmick, and I was helping people. I was being a co-op friend because I needed some vermin. And I had messages back from this one guy. I had about 5 messages going, "Where did you get that? How did you get that? I want the jacket. How did you get that?" I was this close to telling him, "You need to kill Volta." I really did it. I really, really, really wanted to.
Because nobody traces back, would they, with your subtle PSN name?
No, that is not related to anything else that I am online in any other place. Never. Jesus. I love the League. I love that it's reintroduced more co-op. I've had summons, and been summoned far more times than I think I ever had the main game. It's a popping community on there now. What do you guys think?
I feel like I keep talking about Chalice Dungeons over and over again, but the patch that they did fixed the summoning and the
story dungeons
and the quote-unquote story chalices. So now whenever you just go use it, I can get summoned every 30 seconds in the Chalice Dungeons now. It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get chunks and twin shards and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun.
So what are your guys' weapons of choice then? I know that Paddy said that he's not going near the Ludwig's Holy Blade because of popularity. What do you favour?
Why don't we sound like a tosser?
I was quite floral about it, but you are laying your sign down on the ground as such, sir.
I'm dinging the bell of individuality.
You are.
I think Jeremy and I are gonna have the worst follow-up answer to that, because are we both using Ludwig's Holy Blade?
Way!
Yep.
All friends together, drinking loud.
Thanks, Patrick.
We made friends tonight, and now you've got to ruin it because you're.
No, they ruined it first.
You stand in that corner. You two in that corner. You think about what you've done. I'm going to stare at some.
There's a weapon in the DLC that's kind of unique because you can only use it if you have a certain rune equipped. That I think is my new favorite thing in Bloodborne. But I don't want to go into too many details because it's at the very end, and you kind of just trust me when I say you would want to see it happen for yourself. Like, you don't want some dude on a podcast to tell you. But besides the Holy Blade, which is what I've been using on my arcane build the most, that's probably my second favorite weapon.
I think I might know the thing that you're talking about because I saw it today.
Probably
and
Mm-hmm.
it's quite
don't.
quite nice to look at.
I don't. I've managed to avoid spoilers so far.
Yeah, well. I haven't seen any spoilers for that yet. Yeah, I'm pretty far into the DLC, but I haven't finished it yet, so I haven't seen that.
So have you got any favourite characters in the games? Because obviously with the Souls games, people talk about your Soleas and Artorias and stuff.
Every new thing in the DLC is like my favorite character now. Even if it's just like an NPC that's begging you to kill them, like everything they added in the DLC, I'm like super into. There's just more. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
So good.
I think they stepped it up with the atmosphere, and that just sort of makes the NPCs that are in that area seem, I don't know, have more. There's like the guy banging his head against the wall, and like it's
all super. Guy, I met him today.
It's like it's crazy. I don't know. It's really spooky and eerie, and it's just there's so many scenes with these NPCs, even if they don't have like quest lines, so to speak. Well, I mean, I actually don't know if they do or not because I'm playing blind. But even if they don't have quest lines, it's like these events with these random characters is like more memorable than a lot of stuff in the base game, to me at least.
I mean, I like the ones where you get like a callback to sort of. Because the DLC is like a twisted version of the main game, and then you sort of look at the areas you're in. You think, oh, this is where this is supposed to be. Oh, this is where that's supposed to be. This is the old Yharnam area where a lot of enemies that remind you of old Yharnam exist. And I get more kind of callbacks on that. There's one callback to the area where you find Gilbert, and I'm not going to say it because if people haven't met it, then. But yeah, that was brilliant, and I clapped. I was like, I get it. I understand what's happening here. This is brilliant. But then, there's like you said, there's new characters in it. Like, I've met the first boss today. I met my first boss, Ludwig, and I saw the thing again, trying to be as vague as possible. The thing that happens in the middle of the fight happened.
Oh my god!
Literally.
Oh my god!
I died. It kicked in, and I was wondering if my death was what caused it. And then it kind of came back and like, boom, you died. But it must have been milliseconds between it happening and that thing happening. But like that might be my favourite like cutscene bit in any.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my god!
I was talking with Jeremy about that
change
earlier.
in
Again,
music.
I don't want to,
Just incredible.
You don't want to spoil it, but it's like I want to talk about it.
Right, because it's so good. I guess to talk about it vaguely, like it's the sort of thing where. Normally, I wouldn't expect to be into something like that so much, where like I prefer things to be more subtle and not so in your face, but this was just like, holy shit, they actually did this, and they're giving it an entire cutscene and everything, and it was glorious. It was great.
Daddy's home.
There's an NPC later on in the third area that he barely speaks to you. But he's literally just roaming. He's non-hostile. Like you can't target him or anything. But he's just walking around at the very beginning of the level, and he's just like complaining and moaning under his breath, kind of like a drunken beggar on the streets would about Bergenworth. Like, he's just like those idiots at Bergenworth tried to like he's just pissed because these dudes in Bergenworth like fucked his world up, and now there's the curses everywhere or whatever. Like all these beasts are going crazy, and he's one of my favorite things that I've seen so far. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler, but like he's just a really funny dude.
I would love Hidetaka Miyazaki to open a Victorian burger bar called Bergenworth. And just, I don't know, it just amused me. Everybody behind the counters in rags. maybe bandaged eyes. I don't know. I haven't really thought this through.
Welcome to Burgerworth, home of the Burgerworth.
Yeah, they got, instead of like the stars on a badge, it's just like leeches or insight, or maybe that's where their eyes are. I don't know.
Would you like some blood on that, sir? It's just tomato sauce. Like
with you saying about sort of cutscenes and stuff, again being vague, but I will drop a name because these gentlemen will know what I mean. When I watched True Talent's stream earlier, there was an enemy, a boss. I believe he was called Kos, and that was just the most disgusting and brilliant cutscene that I've seen sort of in the game. And the fight, I have no idea how I'll even vaguely get near that. I mean, admittedly, True was jumping around at level 70 with 100 insight, might I add, which is just nuts. But God, that cutscene was just like, it's very impressive. Very impressive.
I understand the
indeed.
reference to Cos, but that's all I'll go with.
Oh, I don't know the character.
That is one of the two bosses I had to get help with. Even at level 123, even with like end game chalice gems and the two popular blade that Patrick hates, it still like I still had to get some help with it.
That's the new name for it, the popular blade.
The cheese knife.
The popular blade, yes, Patrick's popular blade.
You see, we've coined a phrase that should stay forever. But yeah,
that's a really fun boss. I want to. If whenever y'all get to that, just like message me on PSN just so we can like talk about it on Twitter or something. Like I want to talk about it with somebody.
We'll light the Lord of the Rings beacons and light the beacons.
There you go.
You'll hear a noise shimmering through your house, which is almost like Kate Bush singing, and it will be my tears resonating through the internet because I won't be able to do it. So there you go.
Next question.
I put out a question on Twitter a little bit earlier. So said the Old Hunters releases today. What did you make of Bloodborne? Your favourite stuff, and are you getting or excited for the DLC? So we had a little bit of feedback. So Lachlan McDonald said, I'm obsessed with the Souls games, but I'm very cool on Bloodborne. It just doesn't hold my attention the same way. First playthrough was enjoyable though, but been picking at a second one for months. Replayed all the other Souls games since. Brad Galloway said, not amored with Bloodborne, but it was alright. Started the DLC last night. Too early to say much yet. Rich Woodward said, I love it, but not a fan of the Chalice Dungeons. Lore Hunter Soul says, my biggest addiction of the series, drawn in by the gameplay and dense atmosphere, the DLC is waiting for me at home. We did get a thing last night as well from Playful Wolf, who said that the Bloodborne DLC was going live in like 3 hours, and he was really tempted to just crack into it straight away, but couldn't really stay up because it was a work night. So, Glenn Mooney says, it's like crack. I didn't play it for months, then did a warm-up playthrough. Now I can't get enough again. Even Chalice Dungeons, and the doc is pimp. I don't know if that's doc or DLC. I don't know.
Do you think people mean DLC? I've seen people writing doc a lot recently.
Yeah, autocorrect takes over. I've done that twice today. So.
What was that one that you found, autocorrect wise, Pad? That you did? Portcullis.
Portcullis. Yeah, I can't remember what I was trying to type now, but Portcullis came out. I was like, yep, Portcullis is fuck, mate.
Totally Portcullis. Totes book. Natively far, and I keep finding weird things. I won't say what the one thing was, but a shell like a snail. I obviously don't understand that, but
I don't understand that either yet. Nope.
No. Playful Wolf again said DLC tempted me to stay up far too late on a work night. We've got a bookend on this one, but just had to see and die an awful lot. Vader Van Odin said love Bloodborne. I've only played a little bit of the DLC and it's been super awesome. It's been a mind bender and scarier than I thought it would be. It's very familiar but yet very unknown. A great addition to the game. Clifford Goldsmith, Death Note from Dark Insight, said, for me, I was drawn in by the gothic and cosmic horror. It's what introduced me to all you wonderful people and led me to you guys, and what then got me to start the podcast, which I absolutely love doing. Thank you, FromSoft, and thank you guys. And all my Soulsborne family. I like that. So we're a pretty close bunch. Josh Crow, Morbid Beard, said Bloodborne was my first entry into this franchise. To begin with, I felt completely helpless in terms of mechanics, but I was determined to stick at it despite getting nowhere with it, and 90 hours into it I can say I cracked it. It has stormed its way to into my top 10 games of all time because it forced me to be better as a player. Incredible game. Neo Loki said Bloodborne is very close to being my favourite. I've been playing Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1 and 2 roughly at the same time. Although Dark Souls 1 has been my favourite, it suffers from inconsistency. But NPCs and lore make up for it. Bloodborne's PvE lore, atmosphere and style suit my aesthetics. And let me see. Finally, we've got Krish Mosher from Chomp Chain Podcast said, it took longer than perhaps any other game for me to end up loving Bloodborne and for it to get its hooks in me. Couldn't seem to get past the seemingly subtle difference from Dark Souls and the learning curve, but once I did, I was totally hooked. While I'm still a bigger fan of Dark Souls, Bloodborne has an undeniable style, and I can't wait to see what's next. That level of style and the thematic presence in visuals, sound design, story and gameplay is truly staggering. So, yeah, an interesting view across the board there.
We've got one more.
Have we?
We've got one more. We've got one more from another friend of the show, Gav Russell from You Die Blog, Woman Gav to those that are counting.
Really? Did
I'm
he
only
send
an
that
hour
to you?
in. Yeah, he sent that to the pair of us on our personal emails, not
Right.
not our Twin Humanities one.
I'm on the Twin Homes one.
Gav says, I'm only an hour into the Old Hunters, which is so far amounts to a lot of dying in the opening area, but already I'm hook, line and sinker. The detail in the environments is breathtaking. The feeling of treading ground which is familiar, yet horrifyingly different all at once is spellbinding. I've got so much yet to see and I can't wait. Upon its original release, Bloodborne did something to me that I can't quite explain. It became an obsession. I couldn't put it down. I achieved the Platinum Trophy and just carried on playing. Having every weapon, every spell, seeing every secret, battering every boss multiple times over, exploring every chalice dungeon until they were picked clean did nothing to lessen its impact. Even just the dull doof sound that plays when you collect an item makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It's a masterpiece. It's easily my game of the year. Possibly of all time. I could go on. I have been doing for the last 6 months if you follow me on Twitter. But I'll just say one more important thing. Fuck Rom. And then he finishes with shout out to the Milky Scorpions and you know who you are. Yeah, I concur. Fuck Rom. I mean, I love Rom, but fuck Rom.
And I have to say that I've not gotten to Rom, so I don't know.
When you get there, right? Just when you get there, we'll know because you'll just be typing "fuck Rom" into Twitter.
Again, you'll just be hearing Kate Bush as my tears resonate throughout the internet. So what you final?
I find it
closing
funny when you were
thoughts
reading
on-
all those responses, and I'm friends with like 80% of those guys that you were just talking about on Twitter. Like, it's really cool how close like the community is around Souls games. Like, you just get to know everybody in it. It's really funny.
Yeah, I kind of like it that people get talking to people or join in with conversations, and soon they're kind of fast friends. And I think that's a good part of the Souls community, I've found. It sounds a little bit Little House on the Prairie and like we're all friends together, but it's true.
Jolly cooperation, even when the moon's up.
So, what are your final thoughts on the Old Hunters then, and what it brings to Bloodborne and how you fared with it?
Go, Jeremy.
I mean, I'm super positive about Bloodborne. Like, I don't review games for a living, but if I did, it would just be like, the highest rating out of all of them. So like, I'm
Bias.
way into the game. Do what?
Bias. Yeah, go on.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just
From
been
is
silly.
totally paying me to say that because that's something that I have a connection with.
Same. It's all about
No,
ethics and games journalism.
I love it. I think the Old Hunters DLC is even better than a lot of the stuff in the base game. Like Illusory was talking about, there's some really cool set pieces and some atmospheric storytelling. And like, I don't think I've ever played a game that made me think about like Stephen King's Tommyknockers. And then there's a certain area that you walk into where I was like, this is very Tommyknockers, man, and that's something new. And I kind of grew up reading Stephen King with my mom as a kid, got me into horror. So like having that realized in not only a video game, but a video game from probably my favorite video game company of all time, like that's just like I'm just I can't even say how it is. I'm just excited.
What about yourself, Alicia?
Yeah, I strongly agree. I feel like the edition is fantastic. It steps it up in pretty much every aspect. Like every individual thing you could think of, like even like item descriptions. I was having a blast reading them because I feel like they were just maybe even like less subtle than before. Sometimes they're just so over the top, but there's a lot of good detail in them. They tell an interesting story. Like I said before with the NPCs, you get these little set pieces, and they're very memorable. They stand out more than a lot of stuff in the base game, in my opinion. So I feel like they made a very memorable package. What they added onto the game is the best content in the game, really.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourself, Pat?
Well, yeah, echoing again, it's a proper DLC. I mean, when it was first announced, it was supposed to be 2 DLCs that they've mushed into one. Like, so they've gone all out with it. It feels like sort of like Bloodborne's greatest hits in a way, from what I've played so far. Like, you're sort of travelling to sort of twisted versions of places you've already been, but with a bit of a unique twist to make them scary all over again. I mean, I said this before to someone, but it's literally it's pulling an Artorias. Like it's really really good DLC, and it makes sense. Like it's not just here's a brand new place to go to. It's a sort of a twisted analogy of the real. Well, if anything in these games can be considered real world, it could all be a dream. Who knows? But it's such a nice spin on the main game. It's familiar but not, and that's why I like it. It's an Artorias DLC. It's that good. It's that fucking good.
So would you all like to see more Bloodborne, or would you like to see From just leave this where it is and pursue new projects?
Both.
I'd like to see them do one more, at least. See how that goes.
Yeah,
One
agreed.
More.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've made some new content.
I'd love to see
and
him
it's been
return
good.
to I hope to see that Bloodborne has like with all the trick weapons and that like it's different enough from Dark Souls and Demon Souls to be its own thing. I'd love to see more games in that series, or at least in that style, like the trick weapons and not having 70 million weapons, but having 15 like really interesting ones. Like I like that a lot. I would love to see more of that. I just want them to make more Souls games too. Like, can I have both? Can I have all my
Exactly.
pies and cakes at the same time?
I want both. Yep.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting
money.
conversation between Darren Foreman and Brad Galloway today, where they were saying that if they did do more Bloodborne, it would be interesting to make it more of an action game than it is now, but to introduce combos into, because I know Darren's like a really big DMC fan.
I'm really against combos. I mean, that's definitely for people who are into that. I could understand why they would like that. But for me, something that was really fundamental about the Souls games is that the combat's actually very simple. I mean, there's a lot of layers to it and nuance that can make it a lot more complex. But when you get down to it, it's like one button press is weak attack, one button press is strong attack, and I don't know, maybe it's because I've always sucked at fighting games and stuff like that. Like I can't really think out in combos, and I'm more of an old school Mega Man, Castlevania type player where those older games didn't have combos at all. It's very one button press, one bullet is shot type of thing, or you attack with your whip once. So I really like that the Souls games don't have combos in them, or the very simplistic backstep attack combo type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That might just be me, but yeah, I'm like super. I hear the combos, suggested for souls. I'm like, no. But that, that's just me though.
No, fuck combos, man. I'm not into that at all.
all right, cool. I don't feel so bad for ripping on it. Yeah.
I mean, like, it depends on the game, right? Like, some of that stuff is really fun, and I'm trying to remember the last like combo-based game I played that had a lot of fun with. God, I can't remember the name of it, but
maybe
some of that
like
stuff
Metal
is
Gear
fun.
Rising or something, like, maybe.
Yeah, something like that, or like a Bayonetta, or the Devil May Cry, or something like that. Like a lot of that, like real fast-paced action, but that's kind of the opposite of what Souls and even Bloodborne is. Like, I remember first playing Dark Souls 1 and having to unlearn so many bad habits from action games and I'd hate to get away from that.
A lot of those games are all about attack, aren't they? Well, I know Bloodborne is kind of, but it's a more measured kind of attack. It's not just hit all the buttons and win.
With Bloodborne being a more sort of a faster and more action-paced sort of variant on the Dark Souls formula, could you in that regard see maybe a new project from sort of moving a little further into like almost platinum territories again and having faster still combat and maybe combos, but still, do you still think that would work based around similar sort of storytelling, whatever the theme might be?
I don't know.
I'm in a strange place with Platinum at the minute, so I don't know.
I never played. They had that game Ninja Blade. Wasn't that game kind of like that?
Yeah, I've got that. I've played a little way into it, and obviously it was sort of old school but it's still got a really nice design work to it. And there was some sort of sequence where there was a train that was thrown by a monster into the sky, and you rode up the train on a motorbike to attack it. And it was like really proper bonkers. But there was something quite endearing about it, and it still got a similar, that quirk of design that was there in sort of Demon Souls and stuff. But it'd be interesting. I suppose that's one of the things that not only From could revisit should they want to, but if they wanted to maybe step up an old franchise and do something with Microsoft in the same way as they're doing with Sony, that could be interesting. So
see, my worry is like a faster paced game made by someone like your Platinums of the world would suggest to me set piece bits, when you are running up the side of a train, or there's this big kind of exploding thing happening, and it just doesn't feel very Souls. It doesn't feel like, right, you're doing this bit now, and if you fail you're going to start again from the beginning and get back on the train, and it doesn't feel right. But I'm in a strange place with Platinum at the moment. I don't know how to feel about
I'll put this
anymore,
to you.
So.
I'll put this to you then, gents. If From did something with Microsoft in the same way as they're doing with Sony, and it was kind of a variation on Souls stuff, and it was supposed to be belting, would that be enough to pick up an Xbox One?
No, I'm poor.
Yes.
I go where.
I mean,
I go wherever souls go. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a gadget.
That's quite Littlest
freak,
Hobo, isn't it? There is a voice keeps on calling me. Back to Souls, that's where I'll always be. I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all it would take for me to buy an Xbox One at this point is just like, oh, From Software has a Microsoft exclusive game. Okay, I'll go buy one tomorrow, and I'll just start catching up on the Xbox One stuff I missed. Like, it would not even be a question.
Right, well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and having a good old natter about all things Bloodborne and the old hunters, and maybe that's given a few folks the idea to delve into it for the first time if they haven't already. Never mind, pick up the new DLC. Where can folks find you if they want to check out your wares, so to speak?
Illusory Wall first, go.
Sure. I'm on Tumblr, illusorywall.tumblr.com, where I examine mechanics and oddities across the whole Souls series. And I'm also on Twitter, same username, Illusory Wall.
Excellent. And Jeremy, whose brand we have diluted further by inviting you onto another Dark Souls show, where can people find you?
I'm trying to collect the whole set. There's only like 4 or 5 Dark Souls podcasts, and this is like the third one that I'm on. So, you can find me on Tumblr. I run the Dark Souls Haters Tumblr, which is darksoulshaters.tumblr.com. It's a collection of Dark Souls hate mail, and it's horrible. Don't ever go to that site. It's horrible. It's just terrible language. I'm also on I'm on YouTube at not ECEC, which is mostly Dark Souls videos, and I'm on Twitter at JG Greer, where I talk mostly about Dark Souls. So if you can see a trend in any of those, then you're doing well for yourself.
You truly do sound like
thank you guys for having me.
Where you were like, don't go to the thing that I've done. Jesus Christ, don't go there. Oh,
it's horrible.
Dear God, no.
It's the worst language. Like, it's
Stay
just
away.
The worst. Only go if you're 18 and up and can handle horrible language. So.
Right, so we thank you very much again for joining us.
That's where you can find me.
We shall speak to you all soon. Thank you for listening. And obviously this is going to be going out as a TWOFA, so we're going to be releasing 2 episodes at the same time, but nobody's going to know about it until it happens. So shh, gentlemen, shh.
Don't say anything.
No. And goodbye.
No. Farewell.
Goodbye.
Umbasa.
Goodbye, people. Praise the sun. praise the blood moon. It's a moon.
Sun praise.
Goodbye.